Friday the 13th isn't just superstition. It's a date burned into history by blood, betrayal, and a dying curse. This is not a story of bad luck. It is a story of calculated destruction, of an empire built on faith, brought down by greed. We will trace the rise of the most powerful military order in Christendom. We will uncover the secret plot to annihilate them, and we will stand at the foot of the pyre to hear a curse that echoed through centuries. This is the true story of Friday the 13th. They were born from the dust of the First Crusade, an order of 9 knights founded in 1119. Their mission was simple: to protect Christian pilgrims on the dangerous roads to Jerusalem. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. The world would come to know them as the Knights Templar. For nearly 200 years, their power grew. They were warriors, bankers, innovators. They answered to no king, no bishop, only to the Pope himself. The Templars created the first international banking system. A pilgrim could deposit gold in Paris and withdraw it in the Holy Land using only a coded letter. Their wealth became legendary. Their influence, absolute. They owned land across Europe, commanded fleets of ships, financed wars. They were an empire within an empire, a state within a state. Richer than kingdoms, more powerful than kings. But power invites fear, and wealth invites envy. In France, a king watched them, not with admiration, but with a cold, calculating greed. King Philip IV, known as Philip the Fair. He was a man of ambition and crippling debt. He had debased the currency, expelled the Jews to seize their assets, but it was never enough. His greatest debt was owed to the very order that policed his kingdom, the Knights Templar. Philip could not repay what he owed. So he decided on a different course: eradication. If the creditors ceased to exist, the debt would be erased. For months, a secret plan took shape in the shadows of the royal court. Philip's ministers drafted charges, lies spun into accusations of heresy, blasphemy, unspeakable rituals conducted behind closed doors. Sealed orders were written, copied, and dispatched by riders to every corner of France. Each letter carried the same instruction: do not open until the appointed day. The date was chosen with precision: Friday, October 13th, 1307. The sun had not yet risen. Across France, a kingdom slept. But in the darkness, the king's men moved into position. They surrounded Templar preceptories, from the Grand Paris Temple to the smallest rural outpost. The sealed letters were opened. The orders were read. At dawn, the trap was sprung. In a single coordinated strike, every Templar in the nation was arrested. Knights who had fought in the Holy Land were dragged from their beds. Old men who had served the order for decades were thrown in chains. The charges were read to a stunned and disbelieving populace: idolatry, denying Christ, homosexuality, defiling the cross. The propaganda machine of the state turned the saviors of Christendom into monsters. Then came the torture, the rack, the strappado. Burning coals applied to the soles of their feet. Under unimaginable agony, the knights began to confess. They admitted to everything: spitting on the cross, worshiping a bearded head named Baphomet, secret, obscene rites. The confessions were false, extracted by pain and despair, but they were all the king needed. The confessions sealed their fate. Across Europe, the hysteria spread. Templars were hunted, arrested, and put on trial. The order was officially disbanded by the Pope, a puppet of the French king. The knights were burned at the stake. Their vast properties and riches were seized, absorbed into the royal treasury and the hands of rival orders. The great empire of the Templars was systematically dismantled, wiped from the face of the earth. But one man remained, a final Grand Master: Jacques de Molay. He had been a Templar for over 40 years. He had confessed under torture, hoping to save his order and his men. But it was all for nothing. In 1314, after 7 years in a dungeon, he and another Templar leader were brought to a small island in the Seine, in the shadow of Notre Dame Cathedral. They were to be burned as relapsed heretics. As the flames licked at his feet, Jacques de Maule found his voice. He retracted his confession. He proclaimed the innocence of the Templars. And then, from the heart of the fire, he delivered a curse. He summoned Pope Clement V and King Philip IV to appear with him before the judgment of God. Within the year, a final, desperate cry from a dying man. Nothing more. Or was it? Within 40 days, Pope Clement was dead, struck down by a sudden, violent illness. Before the year was out, King Philip IV was also dead, thrown from his horse during a hunt. He died not from the fall, but from an infection that followed. Within 8 months of the curse, both men were gone. Coincidence? Or the final terrible act of a Grand Master's vengeance? A day of betrayal. A day of death. A day of a curse that seemed to come true. Friday the 13th was no longer just a date on a calendar. It was a scar, a memory of a terrible injustice. The superstition took root, a dark flower growing from a field of ashes. A warning whispered through the generations. The Templars vanished from history. Their lands were taken, their order dissolved. But legends never truly die. Did some of them escape the purge? Did they sail away on their fleet, which was never found? Did they hide their immense treasure, a treasure that has been sought for centuries and never recovered? Their symbols and stories echoed into new societies. The Freemasons, countless conspiracy theories. Their cross, their name, their mythos embedded in our culture, an echo of an empire that was erased. Friday the 13th isn't superstition, it's a memory. A 700-year-old reminder of what happens when power turns on those who served it. A monument in time, not to bad luck, but to a king's greed, a pope's weakness. And the ashes of an order that was betrayed at dawn.